Our last panel, I believe, again, you will find it super interesting, between Ayelet and Ayelet. And Ayelet Carmi is a friend of mine. That the story how we met is kind of funny, but I forced her to be my friend. She didn't have a choice. And Ayelet is a painter and installation artist, and her work kind of explore the world of research, and often you see kind of, I would say, connections to the works of Leonardo. And Ayelet Mckyton is a neuroscientist researching the visual system in the human brain. And her research focuses on diseases involving visual effects. And together, before today, they even did a project together that actually explored the world of vision. Ayelet and Ayelet. יש לכם פה את ה... יכול לשבת, יש לך את ה... כן, זה בדיוק זה.
Hello. Do you hear me? לאן זה אמור? מה שאנחנו רואים פה? אוקיי. Okay. Hello, hi everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name is Ayelet Carmi. I'm an artist, as Nir just said. I want to introduce Ayelet Mckyton. We start with our photos here, and then the second. I will talk a little bit. It's a funny coincidence that my name is also Ayelet. I'm Dr. Ayelet Mckyton. I'm a neuroscientist. I study the human brain. Specifically, I study the human visual system. And when meeting Ayelet, I started to think about how our brain influences our art and how much we can learn about the brain from art. So half part of the talk is going to be about these kind of thoughts that we raised together. The other part is about a research I had that Ayelet heard about and made some beautiful work of later on. Right?
Right. I wanted them to see this to begin with, because we choose each one how to present ourselves to you. So I start with like, well, it's not really a self-portrait, but this is me maybe closing my eyes and going into different places. And Ayelet put, of course,
I put my brain. And this is how my brain looks through an MRI machine. This is a slice in here, like a slice from above. And you can see the eyes on the upper side of the image and the rear of the back in the lower side of the image. And in here, you can see visual areas in the brain that are active when I'm seeing things, like Ayelet's art, for instance. So to know a little bit about, to understand this lecture, we'll need a small introduction about the visual system to understand how the information got there, but it's like the briefest introduction ever about the human visual system. So light goes through our lenses and enters the retina. And in the retina, we already have neurons that translate this light into electrical signals, and the electrical signals continues to the primary visual cortex. And what you need to know for this lecture is that both in the retina and in the primary visual cortex, we have neurons that are dumb, they are not smart. So they cannot say what the scene is or understand what the objects are. They only know each part in space, what color it is, and what contrast it is. And we cannot function as sighted people using only the retina and the primary visual cortex. So luckily, after the primary visual cortex, the information goes higher to high visual areas. And in these high visual areas, there is a certain understanding of the world, of what's in front of us. So if, for instance, we see an elephant standing on grass, so the retina and the primary visual cortex will tell us there is something oval, which is gray in the center, and in the periphery, I have something green. And we cannot understand anything about it. But high visual areas will understand that this is an object, a three-dimensional object, that this is actually consisted of legs and trunks, and this is probably an animal, and they will recognize it as an elephant, and they will understand that it's standing on grass, and what's the distance of the elephant for us, is it moving or not? So we can understand what we're seeing in front of us with the high-level visual areas. They are very important to us. But on the same time, they are the reason that we don't see the world objectively. We do not see the world like a camera. We make a lot of assumptions. We do a lot of analysis. Every second our eyes are open. Without noticing, we do. So one example of how we don't see the world like a camera or objectively is a size constancy illusion. In here you can see two men, a man from the right and a man from the left. The man from the left capture much smaller space on our retina and also on our low-level visual cortex. But he still seems of a similar size to the man on the right. And this is because perspective cues. You can see the arches and the flooring that gives us perspective cues, and we understand that the man in the left is further away. If I will put the same man on the left on the right side of the image, he will look smaller to us, not of a normal size. Something is incorrect in this image, even though he captures the same retinal size as the man on the left. And this is because of our high visual areas. We understand that this is a 3D photo, even if we don't have 2D vision. Some of the cues that we have for three-dimensional space are also monocular, can come also from one eye. If we will all close one eye, we wouldn't think that right now we are in a two-dimensional movie, because there are many cues for three-dimensional perspective, which are movement of certain things, and also perspective, shading, all kinds of sizes, perspective. So this is one example of how we don't see the world objectively. Here is a simpler example of the same thing. Because of perspective cues, the line, the yellow line in the upper side of the image, seem of a bigger size than the lower bar on the image. And why is that important? My high visual areas are doing that interpretation. This is important because if I would have wanted to paint the world objectively, I wouldn't be able to do that. If I would want to paint it realistically, I wouldn't be able to do that. And luckily, we have an artist that can explain us how to do so.
Actually, when we had a conversation and she told me that, then I told her that as a painter, we have this, I don't know if you know it, it's very easy to teach. I will just show you this for a moment. Can you show? Yes. I didn't made it. You can see it from the drawing of Direl from 1005. Okay, so it's really old, and I will show you, even I find it in one very small Da Vinci drawing, and it means that you stand in one point, and you just, I can take this person, it will be, wow, this size, and then if I'm having to take a person over there, it will be this size. And when I'm coming and putting it in my painting, it will be like a bit scientific. I will not look at the world as the way I know it, because I know the size of a person is the same size, but it will make me very easy to paint someone that it's something that will look very far apart by using something that it's objectively. So I've been, okay, this is the same thing, artists trying to use kind of machinery in order to make the three-dimension world into a two dimensions, so it will suit to painting. Okay, this is a way, of course, everyone who wants to try to paint is looking at this and doing it, like I show you. You always do it with your hand like this, and very important to Ayelet, to whatever she is saying, you cannot look with two eyes, because then you have three dimension. You always close one eye and do it. Okay, this is a one by Da Vinci, which also, I love Da Vinci's mind, and I was surprised with a conversation with Ayelet that Da Vinci, maybe it will lead us to that.
You remind me of Da Vinci, your art.
I
But
like
you will
him.
see it later, and it will remind you of Da Vinci as well.
Yeah. But he have some, we were speaking together not just about what I got from meeting Air and talking about Air world and Air science, which is amazing, and she didn't tell you a word about it yet, but also what kind of artists have problems in their eyes and what leads them to their art. So my hero, Leonardo da Vinci, had a problem. With one eye, he was, how you call it?
Well, Leonardo da Vinci had strabismus. Strabismus is when you have crossed eyes. So when one eye is looking slightly to a different direction than the other eye. So usually when we don't have strabismus, when we look at an object, our eyes are slightly apart, so we get two different images of the same object, but slightly different. So our brain can combine these two images into one three-dimensional image. And this is a different 3D cue than the one that I told you before of perspective. This is a three-dimensional cue that is binocular from the two eyes. This is not kind of a cue that we can transform into a canvas. We cannot paint on a canvas two different images from two different angles and let the viewer understand what he sees, at least not realistically. So Da Vinci had nystagmus, so he had only monocular cues for 3D vision. So in everyday life, he didn't have to close one eye. Because of the images from both of his eyes, he looked different directions. The images are too different for the mind to combine. So the mind actually neglects one of the eyes and keeps only the strong eye. So he doesn't have the binocular cues that you cannot transform into a canvas, but he does have the monocular cues. It's easier for him because he doesn't have to ignore the binocular
He didn't
cues.
have to close one eye, you understand?
We
He
also
already
see
saw
it-
everything, two dimension. Anyway, and also Rembrandt, by the way,
Yeah, also
which is
Rembrandt had it.
both of them very realistic painter.
Yeah, but also with non-realistic painters, or I don't know if you can call it non-realistic. Can I?
Well, our impressionism.
Okay, thank you. Impressionists. Another nice example about how eye problems can affect your art and help your art in a way. Many impressionists, such as Monet, Renoir, or Degas, they had a condition called short-sightedness. Many of you who wears glasses in the audience have the same problem, that you can see very good for near vision, but for far away, you see a blurry image. So they didn't have corrective glasses, and they still wanted to paint, and Ayelet taught me that they went out of their studio to paint outside, so they're painting far away things. And I think they are known for their art for not being focused on details, but to average a certain space, a certain point in space into one color, into one brushstroke. And if they would have looked at our venue that looks like this, they would probably, if they would want to paint it, it would look a little bit smudged to them, a blurry image like that. And I think when you have a blurrier image like that and you want to paint it, it's easier in a way to average each point of space into just one color. So I think in a way maybe their eyesight invented their art, or their art was easier because of their eyes. Of course, it's not the whole story. I mean, the artists might have much more to offer. For instance, the wonderful art that Ayelet showed me.
Yes, I wanted to show you Monet, which of course, is amazing. Whoever saw this show, he was trying to build all big paints that you can go and be like the inside of it. But what inspired him also, it was important to him to really make his own garden, and then he painted. So when always I'm talking with Ayelet, and it seems like, okay, everything is logic, but there is a lot of things why to do art, and a lot of reasons, and a lot of stories of life, and it's never just one thing. It cannot be only because you have a problem with your eyes, of course, but it can be part of it.
So until now, I talked a little bit about how problems in our eyes can affect how we paint or how we see the world. But what happens when we have a problem in high-level visual areas? This kind of a problem is much more rare. It can be caused by injury, or there is a certain disease called posterior cortical atrophy. This is one of the diseases I study in Israel. Posterior cortical atrophy, we'll call it PCA, is a variant of Alzheimer's disease. And as most of you know, Alzheimer's starts in the memory areas in the brain. And in posterior cortical atrophy, the damage begins in high-level visual areas. What does it mean? It means that acuity can still be very good. These patients come with 6/6 vision, with good acuity. They can understand lines, they can understand sometimes shapes, but they cannot understand high-level vision. They're starting to lose their understanding of objects. It's very difficult maybe to put it into words. Sometimes they have inability to read. William Utermohlen, who was an American painter, he was diagnosed with a problem. This is a portrait of him, a self-portrait, when he was 32. And he was diagnosed with PCA in 1996. And he continued drawing self-portraits throughout his disease. And you can see here in 1997 and in 1998. And in 1999, you already see the amorphed shape that his sketches took him, his paintings took him to. And you can see a painting of his face as he sees them in the year 2000, when he was already admitted and couldn't paint anymore. You can see that maybe he lost the meaning of what is a face, the understanding of what is a face. But the lines are intentional. He had acuity. He knows he has a good brush stroke. It's intentional. He didn't have problems with acuity. The problem is with high-level visual areas. So I think he gave us a very interesting peek to what it feels like seeing something but not understanding them. I think it is very interesting because a big research question is, how do we have these high-level visual areas? When do they develop and how? So researchers think that it happens in the first year of life, that you have vision in the first year of life, and we developed our percept of objects. But if we would want to investigate whether these areas can develop later, we will need to see people who were born blind and developed vision only later in life. So luckily for all of us who live in the minority world, in the developed world, if a child is born with some kind of blindness that can be cured, it's been cured very fast in order so you wouldn't have any deficits. But in the majority world, in the developing world, children can be born with curable blindness and not being treated until late life. And to study these kind of children, I went to Ethiopia and I lived there with my family. You can see them in here. It was amazing living in Ethiopia, and you can see when we come to look at the leg, other people come to look at us. It was a very funny picture, I think, for me. And then in the project of Eye Opener, under the umbrella of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem.
Ayelet, can you let me say something now?
Sure.
I was invited a few years ago by ELSET, the research in Israel for brain, to come and to see if I want to do a project of art, because they saw I have interest with science and art. And I met few projects and few scientists. And then I met this project and Ayelet, and I fell in love, well, with her, of course, and with the project, because it's so amazing to think about a child that grew up like until the age of maybe 6, 7, 8, without seeing, and then just because of their research, first of all, they brought a surgery who opened their eyes and they can see. Okay, they did it for the research of the brain, but for me, I kept on thinking about it, how it is not to see and then start to see. And okay, now I will move it back to you.
You're always welcome. So what we do in this project, we go throughout Ethiopia to blind schools, and we screen children in blind schools, and we see whether they have congenital bilateral cataract in both the eyes, because since birth. And we chose this disease because this is a curable disease that causes blindness. When you have cataract, the lens, you can see here on the top part of the image, the lens is opaque, and light, even if it transforms through the lens, it's scattered, and you can't see any form, okay? So these children are blind, and after surgery, the lens is being removed, and another lens, synthetic lens, is being planted. And after the surgery, the big question is, what can they see? We find these children in blind schools, which means that they are between the age of 5 to 18, or something like that, in the surgery. And this is an example of a child who is 13 years old. He had surgery only in one eye, because the other eye will be having surgery the next day, or doing it sometimes one eye at a time. And since the surgery, he had the bandage. So actually, this will be the first time of him seeing the world. So the question for us, we can definitely soon will see that he can see something, but the challenge for us is to understand what exactly does he see. You can see that his eyes is being cleaned, and I will just continue only until the part that he sees the hand of one of the researchers. No, to continue, just a second. Continue. You see that he raises, soon he will raise his hand. He can see the hand right now. And he raised his hand. Yeah, see? It's nice. Okay. So the question is, how much can he understand of the visual world in such a late age? So for that reason, I gave these children a few tasks, but in here, all of the tasks are the same task, to find the odd element. In the upper row, you can see the task, but it can be solved only by low-level cues. Early visual cortex can solve these. These can be solved by changes in color, in contrast, size, or 2D shape. In the lower part of the slide, you can see tasks that can be solved only by using high-level visual areas, such as occlusion, shape from shading, 3D contour, or completion. The shape from shading didn't come out very well in this picture, but it's supposed to be more smooth. And in here at the holofield, you can see a child who is 8 months after surgery. You can see that he understands the task, and he can find the odd man out very well when it comes to color. But then when it comes to 3D perception that is from shape from shading, he is stuck. He does not know which odd man out to choose. Also in a smaller array. And this is another child, even 2 years after surgery, that can find the odd man out in low-level vision. But when it comes to high-level vision, he's stuck here in occlusion. You're supposed to find the L shape.
So Ayelet was telling me that they come to air, and they can see certain things, but when they have to walk stairs, for example, they are doing it like blind people. They cannot
Some cues are more difficult
the world.
than others. Yeah, some cues are more difficult than others. So my first publication was about these tasks that primary visual cortex is probably fine, but for high-level visual areas, you need to have vision in the first year of life in order to understand 3D cues and completion. I had several publications since concerning other high-level visual areas, but the most important, just a second, can you, okay. This is a child after surgery, okay. אתה יכול לשים מההתחלה? The most important question I've been asked is how are they doing in their everyday life. So this is a child that was blind before. You can see that she can pick up a ball. She can also throw it to a basket. So you will see that she goes through obstacles. And the question of how, first of all, it shows that the operation is still beneficial in late childhood. It is important to operate in this age. The second thing is that these children, when I see them, first of all, they act better after the surgery. They're running towards me before they just walked. When they come to sit down, they can see the chair. They don't have to do this with their hands. However, they do not function like regular children. They will never reach the same results as a normally sighted child. They will have problems, as Ayelet mentions, in stairs, for instance, or in eye-hand coordination, visual motor abilities, such as tracing a line accurately. But again, beneficial and I think amazing working with. And when I told Ayelet about this work, then she started a whole project, an exhibition about this issue of 3 dimensions and and understanding and not understanding in the same time. And I would wish that you would talk about it.
Thank you, Ayelet. I'm showing a small group of work that I did before I met Ayelet, just to show the way my mind is working and what changed with the project I did with her. So first of all, this is part of a show called 2000 Feet, and here I show you how I made it. The work create from 3 different sheets. Each one of them is, you can see through it. And then I put them together and make a work. So a lot of time I don't know in advance what will happen, because I paint each one and then I'm playing around with them. Okay. What else it's make me that I have a lot of big sheets that you can see through. I'm painting on Mylar, and if I want to put them each time, they will be put different, depend where is it showing. If it's in Berlin, you know, it depends if it's this was in Berlin, for example, on a big wall, so I put it up. If it will be down, I will create the work to the place, like it's a little bit like to paint in the place. Okay, this is from the same subject. Here you can see also it's like four layers together. To me, the artist always, when you look at a paint, usually you don't see how it's made. You see only the end. But what I am doing, I'm just breaking it into layers and then playing with it. So you can see the hybrid of the woman with a machine inside her. For example, this work up here, I was showing it, I think, in the Tel Aviv Museum, and then in Berlin, and then in the end, it's in this house of someone. I'm happy, because if it was with me, it would keep on changing, and now it stopped. Okay, and this was a show I made after meeting Ayelet, and keep on thinking about the subject of blindness and about how you see the world, and the 2 dimension of the world and the 3 dimension of the world, which it made me, something for me was very different, which is to cut my paint and to do other things with them. Not to use them as a 2 dimensions they used to be until now, but to really play around with them. Here. When Ayelet saw them the first time, I was showing them at the artist house in Jerusalem, she said, wow, it's like you catch the way this child that I'm working with seeing the world. Okay. It's in movement. So also what, for me, it took me to a different layer of being also like I didn't know how it will finish. And it's each time different, but now it's have 3 dimension, which before it was just a painting. Okay. Oh, before I move into that, you want to say something, Ayelet? What else it's give me, which was important to me to share with you before I'm showing my recent work, is that it was very inspiring to me to move out of my field and to work with partner and to get involved with her world. It really took me to where I was, to a different place. So what I'm doing now and what I want to show you right now, and also a small video. I just show this at the Petach Tikva Museum, and now it's showing at Brandeis University in the gallery. And it's first of all, it's a work I did with another artist. Her name is Meirav Eiman. My painting now become part of a movie video, and people are holding them like flags. So for me, I even went another part with my painting and with going to a new field. And also, it's a huge collaboration. It's a collaboration with a fellow artist, which is something really different, to go out of your way and to work with someone. And also, it's a collaboration with all these people that each one of them choose his own role on the movie. The name of the movie is The Israel Trail, and all the people in the movie are doing the Israel Trail, which is a big trail that cut Israel from one side to another, but they do it without touching with their legs on the ground. So each of them find a way to be a little bit higher from the ground. I will show you a small movie of the making of, and through this you will understand also the movie. Well, this is me doing my, okay. Most of the actors are women. We are like, there is 50 people in the show. Okay. And each of them were really involved with us because it took us like 4 years to make it. So each one come to the studio, try his clothes. Some of them really come with the idea of what kind of machine will they have, because we suggest some kind of machineries that we add in our mind. But when you meet another person, sometimes a third person will come with his idea, and some of them come with amazing ideas of, we just told them the story. Let's think if you would find yourself in a situation that you want to do a really important road to you and you want to do it, but the day you want to come and start walking, you cannot touch it. What would you do? On what tool would you walk? And some of them brought amazing thought. And also, well, because we are two artist women working on a work, then each one of them would have to be happy with the way she dressed. This is difficult. 50 people, a lot of women from different ages, but because it was a collaboration, then each one of them in the end have to feel that it's part of him. And I'm happy to say they all come to the show in the museum, and it was amazing. It was like, not like a regular opening of art that you and your partner, or just you are the important person, but everyone there was theirs. So you see the whole gang and the work.
Now we can take questions from the audience, I think.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Ayelet and Ayelet.
Thank you very much for being here.
Where is our throw-in mic? Let's hear some questions for the Ayelet and Ayelet team. One question.
They don't have
I mean,
questions.
don't
They're
be,
tired.
I know
They
you
want
want
to eat.
Trevor. Give Trevor the throw it on him. Don't worry, he's big enough to catch it. You see?
Hello.
Hi, Trevor.
Hi. As you can tell, I know Nir. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. So a theme that came up with some of the other speakers was the role that Judaism played in either their project or their work. Either they said it was, beneficial, or maybe in the case of the last speaker, he didn't necessarily see any role that religion played in creativity and innovation. Has Jewish culture or Judaism informed your work, and if so, how?
Who you ask?
Either one, both.
For me,
I'd love
it's
to hear from
easy.
both of you.
The answer is no, so you can.
Well,
not at all.
you see, the scientists, they always have, they have answer, I just ask questions.
Wait, can you say a few more words than just no? It can be cultural too, right? Not just religion.
I love culture, and I love every culture, the Jewish culture, the Muslim culture, the culture that they have in Ethiopia, which is actually related to Judaism in the story of Queen Sheba and King Solomon. And but it didn't influence my work whatsoever, because I believe I was born with a scientific mind. I really like just to solve problems and to look at the world objectively or in a rational manner. And in this work, it began after I studied the healthy brain and the visual system. And it came an opportunity to also do this. And I really enjoy doing good is a privilege. So for me, it was amazing. But it didn't have anything to do with Judaism for me. So the short answer was no.
Well,
Okay,
with me, it's never short and never just one answer. And it's nice to be with Ayelet, Like there is one truth, but not with artists. Of course, I am influenced also by Judaism and also by Zionism, by living in Israel also is something that I'm dealing with it because it's also a very interesting subject to me, and all these works that I just saw, the last one, of course, is dealing with Zionism and with the Israel dream of coming to Israel and walking the land, because walking the land is a big part of being a Zionistic, and the first Zionistic who come to Israel kiss the land, they come, they took the land and they kissed it. So when we did this work, and we are talking about the Holy Land, but no one is touching the land. Everyone is walking a bit higher. Then, of course, I am talking about also the problems in the Zionism and with Israel, and it's more complicated. But it's not given one answer. It's just talking about the subject and raising questions for me.
Great. Yeah, I see over there. Question. Trevor, be gentle. She's not like you. Speak to the...
Hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I really expected this to be different and to be interesting, but I didn't expect to see you, and you were simply amazing. And I don't have a question. I just want to tell you that I think that your speech and the presentation you just showed us goes perfectly with what the previous presenter told us, that you need to be multidisciplinary to make something great and to be unique. And I believe that the coincidence that you have the same name is like you're completing each other, and you're like helping each one to show the best. So it's really amazing, and I think the fact that your life somehow puts you in one place and give you the chance to like realize your ideas together is.
I think the world put all of us in this place many of times, but sometimes we take the opportunity to do so. And I had the privilege to work with Ayelet. She's for me, she's so easy to work with. She's very different from me because she's an artist and I'm a scientist, but we're similar in all the correct ways that we think, and we can explain ourselves very well to each other, right? The ideas.
Yes, and I was so happy not to come alone here today, you know. Well, she will talk. She doesn't feel
the thing is
proud.
that-
She knows to do it. My English is broken. Her is perfect. She's writing everything in English. So, yeah.
The thing is that I think that
And
your
she's very,
collaboration-
very smart, by the way.
I think your collaboration is the real art. Like, you're an example of art.
Thank you.
Great. Ayelet and Ayelet, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, guys. To close the event, I want to invite our dear ambassador, Daniel Kutner, for just a few words, and then we'll let you go and drink cervezas and wines and enjoy the nice food that we prepared for you for a few days. Mr. Ambassador. Bear with us a few more minutes. Yeah.
Can you hear? Thank you very much, Nid, for this is an extraordinary afternoon. I think we all agree, and it thanks to you and especially to our guest speakers that came specially to share with us their experience. It's always a big challenge to stand between a group of young people and food. So I will really be brief, but I would want to say that. We came here to hear about innovation, about creativeness, or whatever, however you say that in English, being creative and innovative. And the greater contribution, I think, is in the way we saw how do you do that. The principles seem to be easy enough. The difficult part is in doing it. And I think the stress in, or the common thread between all the presentations we heard is in breaking boundaries and crossing over to another discipline. We saw that in the Israeli Moon Project, how they broke the concept that a moon project should be the product of big budgets and enormous infrastructure. Suddenly, it can be made with less than $100 million and private contributions. Sarah Blau told us this personal and so interesting story about breaking the boundaries and constraints set up by traditional religious society and convention, and also moving from writing in a room to actually acting, which is really going to the other side. Elon Ganor also innovated by breaking down divisions between disciplines, and he himself so sort of Renaissance man, being a medical doctor and a businessman, and then photography artist. I fully endorse his view about the central role of curiosity on one hand, and being well read and being conversant in many fields. Ayelet and Ayelet, well, that's the bridge between really art and brain science. And some time ago, there was an expression in America in the English language, that's not rocket science. Well, this is brain science, and I think we're looking at the future And it is well known that the more fertile fields of creativity are found in the boundaries between different things, between different countries, between different cultures, between different languages, and more so when we are really reaching over to fields that are considered apart, and what great things, what great sparkles come out of putting them together. Thank you very much, Nir. Thank you very much, Google Campus. Thank you very much, my colleagues of the embassy, and thank you very, very much, our guest from Israel. And of course, thank you very much, you all that shared with us this marvelous afternoon. Thank you.
Yes. Great. So as our dear ambassador just say, first of all, there are so many people to say thank you. I won't put all the list, but I want to mention the people that work hard on that. And of course, first of all, the team of the Artian and our volunteers that came over here, the embassy and Yoav that suffered my phone calls in every hour of the day. And thank you for Google Campus for the opportunity. And of course, our dear speakers, they did all the way. And above all, nothing can happen without you. So first of all, thank you for believing in what we are doing, for bearing with us, for coming and tweeting and just being here with us. Thank you, and see you in our next events.